I'm calling to order this hearing. This is a public hearing of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the District of Columbia. I am Phil Mendelson, Chairman of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Thursday, June 24th, 2021. The time is 2:01 in the afternoon, and this hearing is being conducted virtually. I believe it's live on the chairman's website, which is www.chairmanmendelson.com/live. And this hearing will be is being recorded and will be available on the council's website. If not later today, then in the next day or two. And the council's website is www.dccouncil.us. The subject of this hearing is PR 24-238, entitled The African American Civil War Museum, Installation of the Abraham Lincoln Spirit of Freedom Emancipation Statue Approval Resolution of 2021. I'm not sure why the title needs to be that long, but it is. And this resolution was submitted by the mayor, I believe. I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but was submitted by the mayor for the council's approval. The stated purpose of PR 24-238 is to approve the installation of a commemorative work to be known as the Abraham Lincoln Spirit of Freedom Emancipation Statue, to be installed on the public space adjacent to the African American Civil War Museum. The site is located in front of the historic Archibald Grimke School at 1925 Vermont Avenue Northwest, and is across the street from the existing African American Civil War Memorial. Under the Commemorative Works Act, which is the DC law, the sponsor of a proposed commemorative work on public space may submit an application through the Office of Planning and the Commemorative Works Committee. The Commemorative Works Committee acts in an advisory capacity to the mayor and the council and may recommend an application for approval. In this case, it did so on May 3rd of this year. The council is required to act, which it can approve or disapprove. The council must approve a proposed commemorative work by resolution or act in order for it to be installed. My understanding is that the African American Civil War Museum would like to present this statue on July 19th. I might have that wrong, but we're going to hear shortly from Frank Smith, who is the with the museum, and so he'll clarify that. In fact, I now see Mr. Smith on Zoom, and following his testimony, we'll hear, I think, from Andrew Trueblood, who is the Director of the Office of Planning. Good afternoon, Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Why don't you proceed with your testimony?
Okay. First of all, let me thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the council for convening this hearing and hopefully for moving this forward in a timely manner. This resolution is a recommendation from the Commemorative Works Committee via the Mayor of the District of Columbia to the City Council, asking the council to approve the recommendation from the committee, which has already voted to approve it. I wish to thank the Mayor and the council for your longstanding patience and support for the African American Civil War Memorial and Museum. This was a council-generated project, which I often remind you of when I'm down here, starting from the days when back in ancient times when I was on the council. And you've been very supportive of it now through the years. So on behalf of 209,145 United States colored troops whose names are engraved that we rescued actually from history and placed on the Memorial Wall of Honor, I want to say thank you very much. Let me just add parenthetically, for those of us who gloried in the first annual celebration of Juneteenth last week, which I did myself, let me remind you that when General Granger landed in the remote hamlet outside Galveston, Texas on June 19th, 1865, he had 2,000 United States colored troops with him. As Douglas would say, with bullets in their pockets and rifles on their shoulders and US on their lapel. They landed in Galveston, Texas to, as legend goes, to read the Emancipation Proclamation to those people living there for the first time. They landed in Galveston, Texas on June 19th, which was about 2 months after the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, who was assassinated at Ford's Theater and we had a 14-day funeral celebration, starting here in Washington, D.C., and then taking a train all the way to Springfield, Illinois. In May 22nd, 23rd, there'd been a Grand Army march down Pennsylvania Avenue. 200,000 soldiers had marched down Pennsylvania Avenue, celebrating the military victory of the Union Army over the Confederates. And so when Granger's Army got there 30 days after that, it was the first time the people in Galveston had heard, according to legend, about these about the freedom about freedom and the passage of the 14th Amendment. And of course, by then, you know, as a historian, that Congress had also passed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution that was signed by President in January of 1865 and out for ratification by the states. So it's a Juneteenth is a famous day of celebration. I just wanted to point out its connection to the African American Civil War Memorial. Granger's Army was late, but late is better than never. PR 24-238, the Lincoln Emancipation Proclamation Resolution, was developed to carry out a small area vision of the Duke Plan to use art, especially pavers, shrubbery, and other techniques to combine the African American Civil War Memorial Wall of Honor with the Grimsley School development that will include the newly expanded African American Civil War Museum when finished. The idea is to create a African American Civil War Memorial Plaza. The bronze patina of the Lincoln will present a visual pathway to the bronze patina of the Civil War Memorial Spirit of Freedom Foundation Monument across Vermont Avenue. You remember that we wanted to actually do a street crossing there, especially tables and things like that, but we got shot down by the safety people over at DDOT who wouldn't let us do that. So we decided we'd do something visual. And so we have a large image of Lincoln facing a large image of the memorial across the street. You still have to walk up to the corner of U Street to cross the street safely. And so we're okay with that. By way of update, the Community 3 Grimsley development is in the process of turning over to the African American Civil War Museum a quote warm lit shell any day now. It was due to have been passed over to us in September of last year. Of course, pandemic slowed everything down. Although we kept building and kept working, we still got everything behind. And so we're about to get it hopefully by the 1st of July so we can start our work on it. We have already put out for bid the tenant build out drawings that will outfit the building for the museum. We expect to get those drawings, the bids back on those drawings by the end of July. So we'll have some real numbers and be ready and set to go to start our tenant build out, which will take about 4 to 5 months. So by the end of this calendar year, we expect to be able to enter the building, and hopefully we'll have Lincoln installed before that happens. As you mentioned earlier, we had planned to put this on a schedule to try to get this Lincoln approved in time so we could have it for our 23rd annual celebration of the building of the African American Civil War Memorial Museum. You remember we put it up on July 18, 1998. So that was 23 years ago come this July. We'd hope we'd have Lincoln up by then. He won't be up by then because of just various mechanical things that we still have to do. And we could put it up before we got the approval, and we don't have enough time to get it up between now and July. But we will have an annual celebration on July 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. July 18th, by the way, is the anniversary of the Battle of Fort Wagner, the battle that the movie Glory was made about. So we chose that deliberately as an opening day for this exhibit, because we wanted to associate it with that great battle where the one that the movie Glory is made about, as I said earlier. We will not be able to get Lincoln up in time, but we will have on July 16th, which is Friday at 11 a.m., we're going to have a press briefing and a walkthrough of the new museum space. So it'll be the first time people will be able to get a real look at it. It's all cleared out now. It's ready for the installation of the museum build out and exhibits. We're going to show that to the public for the first time on Friday, July 16th at 11 a.m. And then on Saturday, 17th of July, we will have what we call a rally on the high ground, where our uniformed reenactment personnel, including the Women of Freed and the guys, are going to have a 2-hour celebration at the memorial itself. And then on Monday, July 19th, we're going to have a virtual gala to celebrate the 23rd anniversary. And I've attached a flyer to my testimony that shows that for that gala, we have a very famous speaker who's going to be with us that day. His name is Clint Smith. He's no relations to me, although legend has it that everybody was named Smith in the beginning. So maybe he just managed, like some of us, to be able to hang on to that. But he is a New York Times bestselling author of a book called How the Word Was Passed. It's all over the place now. It's on the top 10 bestseller list of New York Times. Clint Smith's book is about, he visits various places where these slavery plantations are, including ones in this area, and has really a wonderful book. He's our guest speaker, and for the on the flyer that's attached to us to my testimony, there's a place on there where you can click on the flyer, and you will see a 5-minute interview that CBS did with Clint Smith. It was actually filmed at the African American Civil War Memorial in the location where we are today. And so we invite people to click on that to see Clint Smith, be inspired, and join us for our celebration that will take place in July of next month. Mr. Chairman, that's my written testimony for today. I'm happy to take any questions that you have. And I might add, for those of you who are listening, we were at 3 minutes and 55 seconds. You told me I had 4 minutes. So I yield back the rest of my time.
Thank you, former Councilmember Smith. Actually, the clock was still going after you said that, so you were a little over 4 minutes.
No, the public saw that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I yielded back 5 seconds.
So I did have several questions for you. When will the statue be installed? Because I know when you and I talked a couple months ago, and I said I would get this resolution approved quickly. We talked about trying to get it installed July 19th. So when will it be installed?
And I got back to you and told you that when I talked to my installation people at that time, they just basically said we didn't have enough time to do it. We have to, you remember, we still have to get, there's a little bit of a hiccup here. In order to get a permit from DDOT to build in the public space, the Office of Planning has to sign off. And the Office of Planning, part of the Office of Planning process, now sign-off process, is this community work process, which I think you all have to look at in terms of how this all lines up. And let me give you an example. When we built the African American Civil War Memorial some years ago, 20 years ago, we had to get approval from Congress to build it. And so we went to Congress. I don't know if Norton, our Congresswoman, went to Congress, got approval from Congress. And so we had already a resolution approving the monument. Then we had to go and start the work to raise the money and get the plans and drawings and stuff together. Your process works the opposite. And that is that you're somewhere toward the tail end of the process. The Community Works Committee kicks in, and then you've got to go through, to meet all the requirements that they have. You have to do an extensive amount of work, including spending a good deal of money on engineering and drawings and things like studies and, various other things, the lighting and things like that, that usually are things that you don't get, you don't do until you have, you're going to get the project done. And we don't know we're going to get the project done until the council votes. So the mayor recommends the council and council votes. So it's a little bit of something that I think, you and I should talk about probably at some point or another, about just how you time it up. I know what the purpose is. I wrote a bill like this when I was on the council myself. I just think we got to get the time worked out.
Well, I think the chances are high that the council is going to approve this resolution, and it's going to approve it next Tuesday. That's June 29th. So I can ask Mr. Trueblood when he testifies how long it's going to take him to sign off. But how long after that before you're able to install the statue?
Well, it's okay. So I need a permit to install it. Permit's been in progress for some time. Actually, there was a hearing on it today, and this morning, and I think that that there's a little box on there that planning hasn't checked, and planning hasn't checked that box yet because the council they didn't want to be in the position of getting ahead of the council. Let me be as generous about this as I can. They didn't want to have checked the box and have had us start to install the monument when in fact the council hadn't approved it. Yes. It looked like we were getting a cart ahead of the horse.
So how long after the box is checked will you be, or maybe I should put that differently. How long after the box is checked will the permit issue, and how long after the permit issues before the statue's installed?
Well, I think the permit, now I'm speculating when you ask me how long will it take the DDOT to issue the permit, I think it's imminent. I mean, everybody wants to do this. I don't think I think everybody wants to do it. It's just some of it is just getting the ritual sort of lined up in the right way. And I think that can happen imminently. When that happens, we then, so then here's what we have to do. We have to do some work in addition to installing Lincoln. We also have to install some specialty paving in front of the Grimke building. Remember, we're doing granite on that side of the street to match some of the granite on the other side where the memorial is. We have to close an opening in Vermont Avenue where there's a lot of U-turning going on and a lot of safety issues there. And then we're doing a what is called a bubble at the bus stop there with the approval of WMATA. We're doing a bubble there that will shorten the bus stop from 100 feet to about 40 feet, bus stop landing, and we'll create some more parking spaces for the residents, a couple parking spaces for the residents. And all those things are going to be done at one time. And we want to do them all at one time. Really, the neighbors want us to do it all at one time, and the developer owner wants us to do it all at one time. So instead of putting the Lincoln in there by itself as an installation, just so we could get the ceremony, have it up there for our ceremony on July 18th, it's now going to be part of the overall package. I would say probably will take place sometime in August, July or August.
Okay.
But not in time for our July 19th celebration.
But it could be in August.
It could be as early as August, yes.
My understanding is that the Commemorative Works Committee report, I guess the Commemorative Works Committee simply, in its report, noted that the Public Space Committee had an outstanding concern over lighting. Has that been addressed?
Yes, we worked that out. Yes, yeah, that has been addressed.
So there really are no outstanding issues other than the council voting.
Yes, that's my belief. The last step in the process is this: the council passing the resolution, and then we'll move forward with the permit. There is a minor issue regarding that the staff is addressing related to the contour of the water that comes down Vermont Avenue once we install this pump out I'm talking about at Vermont Avenue, that it changes the water flow just a little bit, and you have to show the detail. Our engineers have to show the details of how the water flows there. And once we close that median, the median strip there where the turnaround is,
Mm-hmm.
we're required to close those two. Both of these things are being done for public safety issues. The median is being closed for public safety to keep people from making U-turns. And of course, if we've got school buses sitting there with kids on them, we don't want people doing that. And the bus stop is not, quite honestly, is not handicap accessible. It's not handicap compliant at the moment. And while we were at this, we're actually making the bus stop handicap compliant too. And those are two requirements that the permitting people over there are imposing upon us. And since we've got the money to do it with, and the money that the council provided to do this work, we're going to do it and make the place look good, and also create a couple parking spaces and make that the bus stop handicap compliant. This is a win-win, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and all that's going to get done by August?
Thereabouts, yes.
I like your optimism. So let me.
One thing I've learned from this pandemic thing, Mr. Chairman, is that everything moves on steroids these days. So, but once I get the permit and get the contractor out there working, I can assure you it'll get done pretty quickly.
Yeah. So I have one last question. All of the discussion over the last year or two, over the last year since George Floyd's murder, there's a heightened sensitivity to the racial record of so many people. And, you know, the history of the United States has been a history that's not been told fully. And we're realizing that. The committee as a whole has been struggling with this over the last half a year with a number of measures. You know, we have street namings and we're looking at those more carefully. We had a resolution last fall, which the council recommended that Wilson High School be renamed. And we looked into the history of a president that I can tell you when I grew up was a great president, but his legacy was really not so pure. And so I just want to throw out at you a question about, you know, is there any controversy about Abraham Lincoln, and how do we reconcile that?
Well, of course, you know, Mr. Chairman, there was the controversy about the statue that's over in near Capitol Hill in that park there.
Yes.
About that one, which has Lincoln, you know, it has an African-American person, you know, what is look like a kneeling position that's breaking chains and things like that, which Frederick Douglass commented on, by the way, in when it was being built. I mean, he wrote some pretty scathing commentary about it. The Abraham Lincoln that we have is Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation. Paragraph 8 of this proclamation is the paragraph through which all of these 209,000 soldiers that you see on this wall marched into the Civil War. And I mentioned that in relation to, for example, to Juneteenth and General Granger. If Granger had shown up down in Texas by himself, there wasn't enough Texas hooligans down there struggling Confederates who had not surrendered. So he would have been in a big fight. So he knew he had to show up with an army big enough so he could prevail in the reading of the proclamation. That's why those people hadn't heard about it in the first place. So having these guys in the army has made a big difference to not only to them and their sense of who they are and what they could do, but also it was their military presence that helped Lincoln win the war. It was their military presence that helped Congress pass those 3 amendments, 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments. You imagine for a moment, Mr. Chairman, if you had to get those 3 amendments passed to Congress today, you would not be able to do it. Why were we able to do it back in those days? Because these guys, the sentiment of these guys having put themselves on the line, gave the Congressman people enough cover so they could do it. And there was another reason for it too, which should not go unnoticed. And that is that most of these Confederates had been stripped of their voting rights because they had committed treason against the United States. Robert E. Lee and his army committed treason. They tried to overthrow this government, to split this country into 2 halves. And when they were captured and subdued, they lost their voting rights. They had to have their voting rights restored to them. And many of them never really got their rights restored because they were so disgruntled and so mad. They also were mad at these African-American soldiers because of the 200,000 names that we have on our wall, 150,000 of them were enslaved when the war started. So Lincoln essentially armed the slaves in order to defeat the Confederacy and save this nation, keep it united under one flag. And in order to do that, they had to get these 3 amendments passed so that the country could be America for the first time. At which we had a tough time during Reconstruction after that, and then later. But the fact is that this was really a big moment in the history of this country, and this proclamation was the instrument that was used. Lincoln said, "Let the proclamation go wherever the army goes." I mean, that was his instruction. Once that proclamation was passed, he said, "Put it in front of the army, take it wherever the army goes." And by then, the army had these 200,000 black men in there. And he knew they were motivated fighters, and that's why Granger took 2,000 of them with him when he went to Galveston, Texas, because he knew that he had some fighting men who had been in there for a long time by then, and they would make a difference. But let me say one last thing, which I think this is where you go with this. I have been contacted by several people, two of which were very rich Republicans, who have contacted me about Mrs. Abraham Lincoln. And one of them had this concept, what he called the cooling of the nation, calming, C-A-L-M, calming of the nation. And what he said was, because we have the words engraved on the front of this monument, we have the words freedom and union. Now, some people say, well, you know, that's reversed. Lincoln actually was union first, freedom last. He said himself, he wouldn't have brought these guys into the army if he could have saved save the nation without bringing them in. So Lincoln said, Union first, and if I have to do something about slavery to save the Union, I'll do that. And he ended up having to do something about it. That's why he probably got numbers. Well, that may have been true for Lincoln, but for these 209,000 guys who named on that wall out there, for them, it was freedom first. But for Frederick Douglass, it was freedom first. And so once they entered the army, now the army becomes an army of liberation. That's why Lincoln says, let the proclamation go wherever the army goes. And so for us, this is a teachable moment. This is opening this discussion up big time for us to get to the proclamation and get to these 3 amendments. And I said jokingly the other day to somebody from Texas who was I had a congressman there from Texas for Juneteenth, from Houston, Texas, who did a great speech for us, by the way, about Juneteenth. He had a congressman out there, and I said, well, you know, Granger had to take the proclamation into Texas. Today, somebody needs to take the 15th Amendment down there to tell them that these people have the right to vote, because Texas is doing everything it can, along with my home state of Georgia and others, doing whatever they can to knock all these people off the voting rolls, because they don't believe in the kind of freedom and the kind of democracy and the kind of inclusion that resulted from this war with the 15th Amendment to the Constitution. And of course, later with the 19th Amendment, that gave women the right to vote. So some people don't like the direction the country is going in, but those of us who believe in freedom and those of us who believe in democracy and who care about it have to keep talking about freedom and about union in a way that says we can all be part of this system, we can all be part of this country, and these monuments ought to reflect that. And so as you look at these monuments, I think it's okay to take a critical look at them. I'm in support of that. I certainly think they ought to change the name of these military bases. You know, my oldest son was in the first Gulf War. He was over there behind enemy lines for I don't know how long. Came back, you know, has never really healed from it. His son, my grandson, is a Navy SEAL today. It's really horrible, horrific that Black men and women ought to have to come back to these military bases named for Confederates who tried to keep African Americans enslaved, you know, and who tried to keep this, that they have to go to those bases, get the training, go out and fight, put their life on the line, and come back home and be humiliated as they walk through the gate of these places. So what these places are named for, what schools are named for, is important, Mr. Chairman, because our schools pass on the value of this society. If you ask what are the institutions that pass on the value of this society, or any society, but this society in particular, it's the school, it's the public school system that should be teaching freedom and equality and tolerance and diversity and I will use the word love and cooperation, caring. And to have a school named for somebody who tried to keep African American enslaved for all these years, or who tried to keep the schools segregated in the District of Columbia all these years because they thought Black people shouldn't be going to school with white people because whites were better than Blacks. That kind of symbolism should be gone from our society. So it's a tough choice, but I think we got to make it. And every generation has to do its own work. And I applaud these young people with Black Lives Matter who are doing their work. I mean, I was out there in the 60s. I was in Mississippi for 5 years with SNCC when I was their age. Every generation has to do its own work and has to move this thing forward, because that's the way of the world. If we don't do that, the voices of division, the voices of oppression, and the voices of imperialism will overtake the place. And so we have to keep fighting.
So to bring it back to Lincoln, you at one point you said teachable moment, the union first or freedom first. It's good to have that discussion, and you see that as a value in the monument. And whatever the initial motivation, the fact that the Emancipation Proclamation in Lincoln's administration led to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, the Emancipation Proclamation, the end of slavery, that I want to say overshadows any negatives that a person could say.
Absolutely, and I think in this case, the symbolism is important. I mean, this is Lincoln and the Proclamation, an instrument, and really, he calls it. Lincoln says it is he's doing this in that preamble to it says because of military necessity. Proclamation was a military necessity for him in the effort to try to overthrow the Confederacy and keep the nation united under one flag. And in order to do that, he had to abolish slavery because he needed African Americans to fight with him in this army. And you had Frederick Douglass out there basically saying, I don't care who wins this war, if you're going to be slaves when it's over with. So what do we care? And at first Lincoln was talking about only arming the people who actually joined the army. And who could join the army? You had to be a young person. You had to be able to walk 25 miles a day. These guys had to be able to shoot these weapons. They didn't let women in there. They didn't let old people in there. They didn't let children in. So it would have been it would have been better than nothing, but it would have been not nearly as good as what ended up with the sweeping proclamation that ended slavery, and then the 13th Amendment that abolished it altogether in the United States. So it's something that we have to, those of us who believe in freedom have to rally around these things that are important and talk about them out loud and give people some kind of framework for looking at these other monuments and these other places. And there is, for example, I saw something the other day that said that there were more monuments to Nathan Bedford Forrest in Illinois than there were to Abraham Lincoln. Well,
say that again. There are more monuments
to Nathan Bedford Forrest in Illinois than there were monuments to Abraham Lincoln. Now, and I'm joining an effort for people who are trying to put up more Lincolns. Now, what I'm saying to them is you got to put Lincoln up juxtaposed against the spirit of freedom, because Lincoln by himself doesn't work, because the proclamation by itself doesn't work without these soldiers. It doesn't work without these soldiers. So you got to put two of them up there together. We have the model here in DC. We got Lincoln sitting here looking over at the spirit of freedom. We're encouraging people. I had a conversation with somebody about this yesterday, and putting up one in Mississippi. There's a constable down in Atlanta who's trying to find a place to put one up down in Atlanta. We're encouraging people to put them up everywhere, because this discussion has to take place about freedom and about democracy and about what it meant for all of these people that are here fight for all these years. And I think, as good as these new museums have been in the South, and there's some great museums down there. I was with you one time when we went to Selma, Alabama together. There's one great one in Atlanta. There's some great museums down there. And you and I went to Selma, Alabama, when you were down there across the bridge. There's a reenactment group in Selma, a Confederate reenactment group that celebrates Selma as a Confederate victory in the Civil War. The official record of Selma in the Civil War was Nathan Bedford Forrest was routed in Selma. He left there running for his life. He encountered several African-American regiments there. Selma, they whipped his and sent him on the run. These people just reinvented that story to make it fit their own narrative there in Selma. And they have these big celebrations down there where they bring out these guys with their Confederate uniforms, they get weapons on the field and stuff like that. So some of this is just, and these things are all ways that people teach. These things, they're all ways that people teach. So we've got something that's when I started working on this years ago, I had no idea it was going to involve all this involved into today, Mr. Chairman, but I'm happy to be able to see it not only grow and develop, but in many ways it's becoming a model to other people around the country who are trying to figure out how to go at this in a positive way, so that we can build some new monuments and start some new conversations, new dialogue out there about how we keep America a nation where all men are created equal, where everybody's life is valued, where women's rights are respected, gay rights are respected, and all of us can live and grow and prosper in this great country of ours.
Give me just a second. Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm going to let you go and recognize Andrew Trueblood, whom I'm told is here, get his testimony. I don't think I need anything else from you. I don't have any other questions for you. I think this discussion has been helpful. I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but the record in this matter will close next Monday at 5 p.m., June 28th at 5 p.m. With that, let me recognize Andrew Trueblood, the Director of the Office of Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson. and staff of the Committee of the Whole. My name is Andrew Trueblood, and I am the Director of the DC Office of Planning, or OP. I am pleased to testify today on PR 24-238, the African American Civil War Museum installation of the Abraham Lincoln Spirit of Freedom Emancipation Statue Approval Resolution of 2021. In my role as the Director of Office of Planning, I also serve as Chair of the Commemorative Works Committee, which was charged with reviewing the proposal and has recommended a favorable disposition on the application by the Mayor and the District of Columbia Council. As part of reviewing this application, OP prepared a report to inform the committee's recommendation that is posted on OP's Commemorative Works Program website, and the link is included in my testimony. The report includes an assessment of the proposal based on evaluation criteria defined in the Commemorative Works Act, including consideration of appropriateness of the location, subject matter design, financing, and ability of the sponsor to fund construction and maintenance of the commemorative work. The report also considers comments from the Impacted Advisory Neighborhood Commission, district agencies, public utilities, and the National Capital Memorial Advisory Commission. The committee first reviewed the application and concept at its regularly scheduled meeting on February 26, 2021. At that meeting, the committee determined the proposed statute was relevant to the district, appropriate for the proposed location, and consistent with DC values. It was overall supportive of the application and asked the museum for additional information on the finish of the statue, lighting, and interpretation, and requested an illustration showing the statue in its final setting. The sponsor completed all reviews required for commemorative works before returning to the committee for a final review of the application. On April 30th, 2021, the committee met with the sponsor and reviewed the additional information, took into consideration comments received from other reviewing bodies, and voted to recommend that the mayor and district council support the application. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I look forward to answering any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Trueblood. So a couple of questions. One, if the council approves this resolution next Tuesday, and we are intending to mark it up in Committee of the Whole next Tuesday, how soon would you sign off on the permit application so that the permit could issue?
So my understanding is there's no more approval required by me or the Office of Planning. It was approved by the Public Space Committee, which is how this was all coordinated on April 22nd. So Councilmember Smith may have been speaking about a building permit, which is a separate process, but I think as soon as the resolution is enacted, it would be able to be acted on by any of the approval bodies. That being said, we're happy to work with the sponsor and others to make sure that this can move forward as quickly as possible.
And implicit in what you just said is that there are no remaining outstanding issues with regard to this commemorative work.
There are no outstanding issues regarding the Commemorative Works Committee and any approval by the CWC or the Office of Planning as it relates to the commemorative work or public space. I can't speak to the building permit process because we're not involved in that.
Okay. As far as you know, in terms of public space, I think you said they've already approved it, so there's no issue there.
That is correct.
In the work of the Commemorative Works Committee, was there any opposition?
There was no opposition. I think as other bodies that you see, maybe like Commission of Fine Arts or NCPC, National Capital Planning Commission, it was very much meant to provide comments. And that first conceptual review, there was comments about railing type, about finish. There were some questions about lighting and interpretation. So I think overall, there was strong support for the concept, and it was really about refining it to make it as strong of a commemorative work as possible.
So another way to phrase the question I just asked is, I could say accurately that the committee is unaware of any opposition to this statute.
That is correct. Yeah, I haven't heard any opposition.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for you. I appreciate your waiting around for a half an hour to testify, but it was helpful because we did need to hear from the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's going to conclude this hearing. The record in this matter, this is PR 24-238, African American Civil War Museum, installation of the Abraham Lincoln Spirit of Freedom Emancipation Statue Approval Resolution of 2021. The record will close at 5 p.m. on June 28th. It's next Monday. The time is 2:41 in the afternoon, and this hearing is adjourned.